to let you know we are recording now.
Funny thing about the system. So when you're young and you're navigating through this reality, this real, it's very tough because we're not given any tools, nothing. We're just given brainwashing. That's it.
Yep.
So in actuality, for the reality system that we're thrust in by force, we're also forced to perceive things that absolutely do not help us at all. They just hinder us. So it's almost like rendering somebody who's already has a handicap and making sure they have even more handicaps by the time
Yeah.
they're done.
Take like a deaf, mute, blind guy and then wrap him up in chains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this place does. That is the school and the education system. It's so backwards. I used to marvel. And I was like, is there just anything that is actually helpful to maybe guard us, to maybe expand and direct us in any kind of way that we really need to know? For example, when you launch out big, bad, wide world and you know nothing and you realize everything you've learned is useless, but you have learned a great capacity of just being able to be blinded. You've learned that really well. You've learned pretty much that you're going to be corralled like a cow right into things you don't ever want to do. I mean, for example, like working at a law firm. I'm sure there's people who like that, but for the average person, I don't think that's just a real joy. Or working at a supermarket, whatever. You have to survive.
Yeah.
Because that's what the system, that's how it's geared. It's like, let's pretend you're free, because I'm just going to tell you you're free. You're not really going to see any shackles with your eyes. Okay, so I'll just brainwash you, tell you you're free, send you out there. Well, first I'm going to set you up in an environment that is already going to do the shackling as well. Then I'm going to send you to school to make sure that you get really, really a double whammy of the shackling.
Double binding.
It's a double binding. So then we're just going to get you so ready for when we kick you out there, so that you're just truly, genuinely, completely useless and blind, and you will be corralled properly.
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, you're free. Somewhere in there, they tell you, go do what you love, right? But you just want to eat.
Yeah, basic things.
Right, basic things. So you have to be like, oh, well, I just need a job. Well, what kind of an environment have we created here? What kind of jobs are available? I mean, where are the meaningful jobs that actually would be creating a society that would support life? Not here. Here we have, hospitals where it's really just all about, we're just going to wait it out because we know you're going to come to us sooner than later. Mm-hmm. So we're just here waiting it out. We're not going to really help you. It's going to look like we are, kind of, but it's the same thing as the principle of radiation if you have cancer.
Yeah, right.
It's the same principle. It's the principle that they do with all of us and the way that society is at large. So you're going to, people that get cancer, they're just going to be like, oh, we're just going to radiate every single cell in your body. We're going to kill everything. Kill it all. Somehow expect you to survive that.
Right.
And if you do survive that by chance, are you even going to be the same person? What did we really do to you?
Yeah, it's very strange.
Tell you.
It's very strange. And I mean, even hospitals, they do have some benefits, like fixing broken limbs. I see that as one of the main things they actually do. Birthing babies, you could say, but then also natural childbirth. I'm sure we've come a long way from what that actually does for infants.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I don't think it's necessary unless it's breach
It's it, it
or
feel it feel
other things.
it feels like it's so enmeshed and backwards that uh,
It's a sick system.
it's just completely backwards. Like to even pretend that any of the main institutions do what they're saying they're doing is that's kind of a
Yeah.
joke.
No, I know. Nobody is told anything that they need on any level, even to survive the society they've created.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, for the person, the average person who's trying to navigate through their life and they don't even know how to buy a house, and then they find out all of this, gunk, and you've got like two legal contracts that you write that you have to sign. The first one is that you actually own the house, and the second one is that, oh, not really. This one's going to just make you believe you own it, but we are going to own it for you. But you can't really see the writing on that.
Yeah.
And there's all this craziness in every single solitary aspect of it.
Yeah.
So, but when you say to somebody, you just go walk down the road, pick and select a person, and go up to them and say, "Hello, do you know how to take care of yourself? Should something happen? Do you know how to garden? Do you know how to grow tomato? Do you know how to grow vegetables? Do you know how to make candles? Do you know anything?
Do you know what wild mushrooms you can eat without dying?
Do you know which mushrooms do you?"
Or without going on a psilocybin trip?
That's actually a good one, because I ate bad mushrooms once.
Yeah?
I didn't.
You
So I
ate,
was like,
you
"Oh,
ate some
these
psychedelics on accident?
So it was like we actually cooked them up for, in butter
Wow.
as a part of dinner.
So you
But-
just everything was melting together and you didn't really understand why.
Actually, no, it wasn't even a trip. Sadly, it was a trip to the bathroom in agony. That's
Okay.
what that one was.
So it was more on the poisonous side, not the psychoactive side.
Yeah, it was poison.
Okay.
So my girlfriend and I were like, "Oh yeah, that was not good." And then we took the mushroom course, because we're like, "That's not going to happen again." So we went and took the mushroom course.
Well, there you go. That was your prompt to learning, right?
But I mean, the point is, nobody, for the most part, the very things that we need to learn, even if you're going to accept this type of society, which I do not, this is the society that doesn't foster life. It actually fosters death and the death cycle.
Yeah.
But even so, the brainwashing is such that you're not even equipped to navigate through it properly at all. Like, you're just, you could be living in it for 40, 50 years, and you still don't understand what the heck is going on with taxes. Not that we should be paying, because, we've been sort of seduced to be, if we're going to pay taxes, you know what, we have the right to run our own government ourselves.
That's
and
the
go
theory.
in there whenever we want, and they should be getting the same rate per hour that everybody else gets. But that's a whole different topic. But the point is, we are not taught, we're not given tools, we're just thrown and flung into this place, and somehow certain people make it through really well, others suffer terribly. They never seem to get it right. They go through life just struggling like crazy, living paycheck to paycheck, and life isn't about living anymore. It stops being about life when you are just always stretched to the maximum and depressed, and you can't even live properly.
Yeah, I think I heard a statistic once, and I could be wrong, and the statistic could have been made up, but it said something like 70 or so % of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And if that's true, then that means that everyone is on the borderline, which means that the system was intelligently designed to be able to have everyone at the borderline and it still somehow sustain itself.
Right. And that's very, I mean, if you think back even 30 years ago, that was just not the way it was, even on that front.
Yeah.
So really, what we're seeing is just, they've wiped out the middle class. And now we've got just the haves and the have-nots, just like Bush laughed about, when he said it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it's just like, We're the haves. But now we've got just the majority of people who have probably up to 60% of their check going to rent, if not more.
Yeah. Even
Let
in
alone, like, don't even talk about buying a house. I mean,
even in San Francisco, it's every single. There aren't really any wealthy people there. I transport people all the time, and whether they look wealthy or they look like regular people, they will all complain equally about rent. There's not any one of them that acts like, oh, well, I'm outside of this scourge that's on the city. No, every single person is within it.
wow. Yeah. And that's just getting worse.
Yeah.
Getting worse.
The system was intelligently designed to entropy itself. I think that's exactly how it was designed, and it is the dog eating its own tail kind of a thing, and it's just how the overall system was designed.
Exactly. But I mean, it has the design because it plays a role in your psyche, and it does so subconsciously. And it takes your agreement through omission, it takes your agreement of consent without you even realizing it. So you accept the terms and conditions, aka everybody, and it essentially is doing the opposite of what it was designed to do to begin with. Because, we were going to get into the whole aspect of what is money.
Yeah.
So, money, anybody can brainwash anybody to believe anything they want. Anybody can place anyone in a room long enough and just give them what they want to see, and they will go out and they will formulate a life around that perception.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so ultimately everything's energy. If you're birthed, and I don't even like that term, right? Because all these terms, birthing at the dock, it's all about like the sea language, the language of the sea, yeah. And the chattel and all that garbage.
Yeah.
If you come into this realm and you really comprehend that everything is energy, then you're not going to have a perception about anything, right? There's no perception, because that's something that you get to play with. You get to play with perception. That means that you get to play with what happens with that energy form, mm-hmm. and how that relates in and to you in your world. Right. So if you do that with everything, you'll see that everything will radically change. But if you already have a previous version of what you think that thing is, if you've already been mind controlled to see it in a certain way, then your life is going to you're going to be subconsciously be creating what that is.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing that, and you're not even going to know it.
Yeah, it's very strange. Because we create the system internally, and at the same time, it's like, how far back do you really want to go? Because if you're creating it, and then it's a strange mind loop thing if you try to go into it too far.
Well, it's the same thing out there as in here. Like if you look at what we look like internally in our DNA and our atoms and all that, what you're going to look at is the way that the universe looks. That's what it's going to be. There's no difference.
Right.
And in actuality, there's really no difference in quote space either between that and out there and in here. It's all, again, right? It's perception.
Magnification.
Right. And your relationship to everything. Right? Just like, remember when we did the last one and I said I was having trouble walking because my perception of the ground was in a totally different place?
Yeah, right.
So I just couldn't get it right. And it took me time. What was happening was it took me time to learn how to perceive this reality, how everything works with the body and your relationship to it. Like if I put my arm out, I mean, my arm's going to extend this far and this is what I'm going to feel. Like space is going to be out there, whatever, right? But, it's fascinating with money because almost everybody in the entire realm has gotten it all wrong. Now, the people that have gotten it right about it, well, a lot of those are questionably, I'm not really sure how real they are. You know, I'd have to say that some of those at least are just backdrops.
Yeah.
Others are the real people who really want to get with the backdrops because they want that life. And then you've got like the majority of the population who's struggling in one way or another just to survive. So, and then you've got a few who are brilliant. And again, right, it goes to a setup. If you're born to a family and they say, hey, Gary, guess what? You don't have to worry about university money. We're just going to fund everything. You don't have to worry about working while you're in university. We don't want that, because how could you do well? How could you, university is hard enough. So we're just going to make sure everything's given to you. You're going to have all the resources you need. Okay, you've got a higher chance then of actually thinking for yourself. And you have choices that you can play with, which means you don't really need to be in the box. You can actually be in the box and find a way to get out of the box. You could do a bunch of, but if you don't have that, if you grow up poor and it's just an abusive environment and you literally have zero options, zero resources, and then somebody says to you, make life out to be whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
Life is, what was that saying? Life is your oyster, right?
Life is your oyster.
Meanwhile, you're like, I could really use an oyster right now.
I don't like oysters.
I mean, like, if you're hungry,
Yeah, right. If you're starving, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you like oysters?
I think they're weird.
They're just slimy.
They're slimy, and I'm not sure. I don't know. It's just a weird kind of thing. I don't know what that is, really.
I mean, that's just you're just eating the home in which the pearl. That's what comes out of an oyster, right? A pearl?
Yeah, pearl.
Yeah. You're just eating like the home of the pearl, the gelatinous home.
Right. But I mean, if and I have met throughout my life, people who they showed certain capacities that they had, which were to me like playing with energy. And they were really successful because they came from really crappy environments, and they were able to take energy in the form of whatever or however it came, and then transfer that into what they could use. This is at the heart of what money is. Money is an energy. But if I said to you, and I get the argument, I get all that money's terrible, we don't need it. Okay, we could go on forever about the arguments, but that's not really what I'm getting at. It's not about money. It's actually not about money at all.
Yeah. To me, it's more about time and sort of privileges. I always saw money as a permission slip that says you're allowed to do this sort of action. Well,
that's what they want you to believe. That is what they want you to think. Because if you have a relationship to money and you think like that, things aren't going to go well for you in the sense of getting permission to get time.
Yeah.
You're always going to be chasing time. Because that's the relationship that you forge with that energy. And the universe is going to say, oh, God, okay, Gary, I guess this is always going to be the game now. You're just going to chase time. And that's how it works. If you just say, it's just an energy. I don't attribute anything negative or positive. It's what I choose to do with the energy. It's an energy, for crying out loud. There is no positive. It's what I want it to be. Okay? Somewhere along the line, we accepted that we were going to use this form of energy. Well, okay. Just maybe put your perceptions aside about all the bad stuff about it, because people have used it badly. Some people have used it well. Just remove all that. It's not necessary. It's an energy. Use the energy. And you tell the energy what you want. For example, no, it's not about getting permission for time. This thing isn't going to tell me that if I have it, I get time. Like, I'm going to tell it what I want. And in time, things will just turn. It will turn if you genuinely step and walk in that. But you have to do things to reflect that belief. I don't like belief because then you're the lie out.
Be
But
the lie.
you know what I mean. Be the lie.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. If you're really living that in your, something is going to happen energetically all around you. The universe is going to mimic what that is.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens.
Yeah, there's also at least for me there has to be a believable sort of transition point around your beliefs about money or whatever sort of energy you're talking about. So you can't just jump directly from, if you've been having money issues your whole life, you can't jump directly to, okay, I accept wealth in my life, and where is it? 2 days later.
No. But you got to find out why have you had those issues? You have to track it down to the point of consciousness in the things that have occurred that you've accepted along the way. It's not just about, and it is a point of transitioning for sure, because you can't be like, oh, okay, like the law of attraction, which is, no, it's just when I see things like that are so simplified, and it does so much damage because people are like, well, it's not happening. Like, I'm going around going, I'm going to will it, and it should just happen.
Yeah. It's not right? It's not, if it were that simple, everyone would have what they appeared to want.
How do you collapse?
In a second.
Right.
In 1 second.
So how do you collapse? You got to collapse the stuff that led up to whatever your belief systems are around that energy. You just got to, you got to figure out exactly, precisely what they are, because they're attributed to things that have happened to you when you were growing up.
Yeah.
That you accepted, or that you had in a past life, or whatever. Like, I've known people that in past lives were like prostitutes a lot. And so somehow in this lifetime, they still have that thing, that pattern going on over and over and over again. But they're not prostitutes.
But they have some sort of as a subconscious undercurrent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then their life is mimicking that, and it's like, ooh, so this started somewhere.
Yeah.
So everything is about consciousness. Energy is about consciousness. Energy is about you choosing what you want to do with it. If it's just an energy form, which all things are, then, and I think, subliminally, I think this is why people really like getting high. Because it's the only way that they know how to play with kind of energy without really knowing what they're doing. They're just getting high.
Yeah, right. And then they come back to the real solid world and they forget all about that sort of stuff that they did in there. Or like in the dream world, it's the same thing. And the dream world below this dream world, like where you're sleeping, you can fly, everything morphs as it floats along in the dream.
Yeah.
And then we come back here and it's like, oh, everything is solid, and I have very specific parameters as to what I can do.
Right, and it feels heavy, and, you're just like molasses. I'm wading through molasses. But, then again, I can challenge you and say, well, I've levitated. So I've done things that we can do in that realm up here. So surely we all can do it, but there are these blocks, things that we've accepted about energy, about how we perceive everything.
Yeah.
There's always anomalies happening all the time, all around you, all the time. You just can't. Your eyes have become accustomed to the brainwashing perceiving reality here.
Sorry.
So
the internet connection is going. Yeah.
Oh, we got.
I think we're back. You were kind of breaking it. We're not. We're stealing internet from Starbucks, but we're not like right next to them, so. Oh,
Yeah, so we are not.
your
Where are
voice
you
and
sitting? Because it
hold on.
the connection is just. Okay,
It's
you're
breaking up.
you're frozen.
It's breaking
Could
up.
it could it be where you are located? Maybe.
Oh, you're back now.
Yeah, I'm back.
You're back. I don't know. It could be either end. I'm always in the same spot. I'm just at this Starbucks. But
Ah,
who knows?
okay. I don't know what could be just solar flare anomalies or any number of things. But as I was saying, that we have anomalies happening all the time around us. In fact, money itself, if you look at the American money is very good for this. When we speak about anomalies and the things that they place on money itself, because they know what they're doing with it. They know it's an energy form. So they put sigils on it. They forecast the future like a reel. They put it all on there. Everybody
Yeah.
carries it around and manifests it. They know exactly how to utilize that energy to manifest everything they want.
Yeah.
So, but nobody using it knows, really, for the most part. Most don't. And even the ones that are successful and manage to, become wealthy, well, that means you're well. That's an interesting, because when you're poor, you're poo. But when you're wealthy, you're well, right?
uh,
So
yeah. It's always written there. It's always written in.
it's always there.
It's always like
You know,
it's like self-incriminating language that we use on ourselves.
well, and so maybe we should put our own stuff on there. Maybe we should override their magic and put ours on there that works for us and our universe. Maybe we should be taking everything and putting our version on it.
Yeah.
And not accepting like a herd of cows. What, we're accepting what hey, I'm going to give you this. And you're not going to realize it, but you're my little factory boy. You're gonna create what I need you to make, and you're
Right.
gonna be my factory girl. So here you go. But you get to use it to. I'll let you use it.
I'll let you eat every once in a while.
I'll let you eat. Yeah, exactly. I might even let you decorate your pen.
Yeah, it's really I don't know. It's a pretty good sort of dupe that everyone has been had. But at the same time, like for me at least, I don't know. It's like majority is heard, so I can't get along with them anyway. So I don't have somebody to talk with to try and figure the situation out. I mean, a few people like talking to you and stuff, but they're not surrounding me.
No, well, they're not. We're not surrounding each other. We're sort of like in all these obscure places. All the little drop here, a little drop there, a little drop. I mean, thankfully, there's more of us now because of the internet connecting, but we're still far away from each other. Too far. I mean, it's not like, hey, I'll meet you at Starbucks.
Yeah, right.
But maybe we should be taking that energy and making it our own and putting whatever we want on it. Like, why can't I draw my own magic on there? Why can't my magic of intention, whatever it was? Like, I will not believe you're garbage. This is my, this is my universe.
Right.
This is going to be an energy that I'm going to use, but I'm not going to think anything of it. I'm not going to think that it is this, and because I need it, I'm even just chaining yourself up in a belief means that you're going to be the embodiment of that belief.
Yeah. It's really more of a testament to how intricate our sort of manifestation abilities are, because you can give us just a tiny taint of sort of darkness and we will elaborately weave it down.
Yeah, we're really comfortable with darkness.
Yeah.
Like a lot more comfortable with that than we are with real light.
It's kind of strange.
I mean, how many people do you know that fear their own success? They fear being successful. It's almost like they're more comfortable being depressed and being poor, and just, the devil is better than the, nice guardian that you don't know.
Yeah. And well, also it's like you have less to lose as well, kind of a mentality. I have less to lose.
Oh, like, but do you really? Or you like, it's all relative. If you think that way, it's relative, because let's just say by having everything, you could have everything, and having nothing, you're still in the same everything, but you're in the opposite version of it. It's like just a flip coin.
Mhm.
You're still always everything, no matter what you are. You might as well be the writer of your own story. You might as well be the author that says, these are my terms and conditions for my reality.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and like I say, I think we're all on this journey trying to figure out how to play with this energy and how to work it, because we've been stuck here, stranded in this birth for so long that we've forgotten the thing that should be the most innate in us of all, which is just to play with energy, reality, create what we want, and not accept what we're given. It's just, I mean, this is one of the reasons why television is mandated in the entire world, because it's a part of your programming. They want you, they want to even introduce how they want you to feel feelings and around what that looks like. Like, I want you to be sensitive about these things. I'm going to mold you so you are, so that way I can use you and your sensitivities for all this. It's really not about, oh yeah, because you're a nice person, you feel stuff, and so when you watch the movie and you cry, it just means that you're really a humanitarian. It's not about that. It's a different form of brainwashing and manipulation of your emotional, mental, and your critical skills. You're no longer critically thinking and trying to evaluate things. Like, why do I have to accept that because it's right in front of my face? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm always saying stuff like that. I'm probably everybody's nightmare. Like in every educational system or every like bank. I mean, I'm a nightmare, because I'm like, why do I have to accept that?
Yeah.
Well, why is that? And I want to know more about it. And who the hell's the owner of this anyway? And who's the owner of this bank? And I want to know them personally. Can I talk to them?
Right.
Like, what? How? And what is this bank?
Yeah, right. What is it exactly?
Why are you talking to me about a TSF or whatever, and then saying that I can't even take out whatever I want, or if I take out something, I need to pay for my own money, like, or you've already paid taxes, but if you take that out, then you've got to pay more. It's like, none of it makes any sense to me. I'm like, who the hell are these people?
Have you ever gotten to one of them?
What? Like, well, I like credit unions.
Have you ever gone to talk to a banker and said, like, what are you guys actually doing here?
Yes, I have.
And what do they say?
Totally, absolutely. I've gone in there, sat myself down, and said, I'm not leaving until I get answers, because I want to know everything, and I want to know where you live. Because let me tell you, if you need to know everything about me, guess what? I want to know everything about you.
There you go. How did that work? So you know where they live now?
Actually, I do. He ended up being a really cool guy. The one, like, I have, been kicked out before. But this one was really, he was like, wow, I love it. Sit down. You're like, teaching me how to think differently.
Wow.
And I think I was like sitting and talking to him for like 4.5 hours about all of this stuff. And just like, your role is, I'm like, what are you doing? You're perpetuating this. You're in a position where you can move stuff. Move the fucking energy. Start maybe talking to your little colleagues over there and saying, well, maybe this isn't right. Maybe some things here aren't right. Maybe we should take those like blinders off our eyes.
Yeah.
Like horses, those like that you can only see straight ahead. Maybe we should take those off.
What did he say? How did he respond to all that?
Yeah, he was blown away, because I was like, He was blown away, and he agreed. He said, "Oh my God." Funny. The funny thing is, after I think about a year later, I called to see if he was in, just check in, and he had left the bank.
Yeah?
He had left the bank. Yeah, like he had apparently gone through, very eye-opening
He went through
series of events.
he went through the Laura wake up call.
Well, I think that was the nightmare. So like, the wake-up call's better.
Or you were just like one of the series of unfortunate events that he went through right then.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that are not receptive, and that's where I'm a nightmare to them, because they just they don't even know what to do with it. This is how badly the brainwashing is, that you can make the most amount of sense completely, and they will revert to that non-thinking, brainwashed child in front of the television, who gets told, "Don't forget to eat your peas, Bobby." I'm just going to tell you exactly how to live, how to feel.
Yeah, right.
What to do, what to accept as normal. Normal, come on. What to accept as normal? I walk out my door. I don't need to accept what's normal out there, because I'm pretty sure I've got some beef about how we're like creating our reality.
Yeah, me too.
It's what, like, so fraternity. Is there any wonder why when you're in college or university, when you're in college university, you have little fraternities, right? Like the alpha betas, or the zeta, whatever, right?
Yeah.
The omegas, and that's all, of course, it's military brainwashing, no doubt about it. The other thing is, it's fraternities of power. Okay, so if you belong to this one, that means that you get more power in the university.
Yeah, the university.
Okay? Exactly. And then usually those kids, the ones whose parents have some kind of standing in society, and they just get placed, in some standing after their parents. But the thing is, it follows the same structure of power that we have in the world. So, they see it as all fun and games, and, they party a lot, whatever, but it's really, underneath it all, it is the way that this society works. It's a small fraternity.
It's a hierarchy.
That run everything.
Yeah, it's a hierarchy.
Yeah, so you've got this, and each of them have a slice of the pie, because it's not our pie, it's their pie.
Yeah.
They get all the slices. Yeah. We get to make it for it.
Right.
So, why do we have to accept that? For example, why do we have to accept pretty much every single thing we live during the day has been kind of, in one way or another, bonded into us? So when we break it down, where can we move? Where can we start moving the energy? Where can we start ripping things apart? Where can we start tearing things down and rebuilding according to what we say and want? Where in every single thing we do in that whole day can we start doing that?
It's all been ordered. I made a video about it, I think, today, but all of it has been ordered for us from the get-go. It started off with the marking out of time via, the astrological movement of the big planets and whatnot, right? The sun. So now we have each day chopped up into these bits called hours. So we chop those up into minutes, we chop those up into seconds, and every single sort of space within the day has an appropriate activity that should be being done right then. And there aren't very many of them. There are like 12 or 13 of them that you're supposed to be doing. And if you're not doing one of those, then you're being a bad kid, or you're sinning, or you're doing something's off. You're coloring outside the lines, all these things,
Yeah, right.
And you feel bad for it, especially if you've been brought up with that moral sense of I ought to be doing this or this, then you actually feel an internal guilt for coloring outside the lines.
Right. So I ought. That's the same with money, right? These are the same thoughts that happen with money. It's exactly the same.
Hmm.
I ought to be doing this, or, you know, I have to work this much for this much. And somebody else determines how much that is.
Yeah.
So it's still servitude, indentureship to that. And if, you know, if you don't follow all of this, then you ought to feel bad. You just ought to feel bad as much as possible.
You ought, yeah, that's generally it.
Right? if you're always feeling bad about, you know, something, then we got you cornered. We got you checkmated.
Yeah. And we also
And
have
then,
the medicine for you while you're feeling bad, which will make you feel worse in the long run.
exactly. And then you've got the, you know, they've got the technologies, the special, you know, special K technologies that they just use waves. Thank you, Rife, for creating a technology in Tesla that has just been stolen, usurped, and now used against us, as well as neurologists that worked for, you know, the Nazi regime in Spain, who were brilliant in their own right, but monsters, who really knew how the brain works with these waves, with these technologies, and we could just remote control you. We're just gonna send a little pulse your way, and, you know, then everybody, the whole community is acting the exact same way. Everybody wants to eat chocolate, or everybody's, you know, whatever the flavor of the wave is. So it's just almost like an experiment. It's just one big experiment. How far can we take this? Like, what can we do? What can we create? They're the ones that are playing with energy.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then and we're the ones running around freaking out because they're playing with energy and creating whatever they want, but we're the ones, you know, getting pulsed at and all this stuff, but not even realizing that it's everything. If everything is energy, then we can do whatever we want with it. Also, all these technologies to begin with are really just trying to replicate what we do naturally. Mm-hmm. So, brings me to people with abilities. I mean, this all goes back to money, okay? It all goes back to money because money's an energy. So, you know, just like people that have the abilities. And there's quite a few people being documented who now, I really wish that, you know, when I was a kid we had YouTube and stuff like that, because it would have been really good to record some of the stuff.
If the camera would have recorded it. Does the camera record everything like that?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure back then. You know, this is going back a ways.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like the camera might not record sort of I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know if the camera would record it. Like,
well, you mean
things.
To say, like, would it even register? Would it pick up?
Right, yeah, right.
I don't know, because, yeah, I know what you're getting at. Well, I mean, it would definitely register, like, levitation.
Yeah.
Right? Things like that, but would it register, like, the lightning bolt coming out of my hand?
I don't know.
Sure.
You'd have to try it out.
Well, I'm glad that stopped, though.
If you want to try right now, we can see if my camera records it.
Well, you know, when you do energy work, and this always amazes people, but when you do energy, have you ever had somebody who can really play with energy and do things around your body?
Yeah, the Reiki Eden, who I get Reiki from her once a week. I've had like numerous things happen with that.
So do you ever feel like it's like a physical, like literally a physical thing moving?
Yeah, I felt energy moving. I described it as tracers. It felt like tracers were moving up and down, like to the base of my spinal cord, and then they disperse out to my arms and the whole body. There's a sort of a more palpable, energetic feel moving around than normal. And I feel like normal for us, how we are now, is removed from almost all of the powers, almost all of the sort of sensings that we were supposed to be at. I feel like we've been numbed down to the point of near non-existence, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Like something radically happened where at this juncture we should have already been exhibiting a lot of our abilities, at least, I'm not saying like master them or anything, but at least literally have proof of being able to move stuff with our minds and
Yeah.
things like this. But now it's almost to the opposite extreme where it's like there's a thick membrane that got put over us,
Yeah.
and now we're like we can't we can't
Yeah.
do anything.
It's like you're encased in a blob of jello or
You're
something.
encased in a blob. We're back to the blob.
I feel like for me at least, whatever all the mental stuff I have, like the pure mental, which is like the most refined energy that I know of, that all seems to be there. But as far as my ability to like manipulate the physical world, it's like not there, and I don't want to really manipulate it very much at the same time. Like it's a strange sort of internal thing for me.
Okay, so when you do you have, because what I find happens more so than anything is that it's all this kinetic subliminal stuff that happens. So you're not really willing it. You don't walk by and go, light bulb, go,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. You're not even cognizant of it. You just walk by. And then I know what happens. So I get a lot of this subliminal kinetic stuff that occurs. And if I'm upset, it's very bad on computers.
Yeah.
Okay? Like they can't cope with it at all. I fry my phones, light bulbs start going, and I just like, I'll walk by and they all just like, what else happens? Oh, sometimes I'll just have a pen and it'll just flip out.
Yeah.
Or something flips out.
Just
on
flies
its own.
across the room.
Flies across over there, and I'm just like, okay. If I'm around people, it's not me.
You just like look the other way.
A girlfriend of mine put it, her boiler blew, and it was during an argument, and there was no reason, like when the boiler man came over and he had to find and determine the cause. Apparently it was just, there's no way this was just like some weird unknown strange pressure out of nowhere,
right,
that just and my girlfriend, because sadly she had a few of these things occur around me, so she was like, I don't know how you do it, but I know it's you. And it's always when we're fighting.
Yeah.
But because she's just, it's hard not to argue with her sometimes. She's so stubborn. But, things like that, like subliminal kinetic things. But like I was saying, there's anomalies occurring all the time. And in fact, a lot of the time, ghosts. Let's just talk about ghosts for a minute.
Yeah.
Right? Because, they're out there.
I think everybody likes ghosts so long as they're not being too bothersome or scary.
Well, the reality is that a lot of the time these ghosts, if they're, let's say, trapped in between worlds for too long, they get angry.
Who wouldn't, We've been trapped for here a really long time, and I think we're finally getting angry.
And we're angry. So they get angry, and what you'll see often is that they get so desperate that they just want to inhabit a body.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to do it anymore. Because they're trapped in between, literally, on the one hand, yeah, they didn't get recycled or reincarnated, but they didn't go to the factory of the oversoul. But on the other hand, they just stay trapped right after they, quote, left their physicality. So I don't really want to use the word dead, because death just doesn't even apply. It doesn't exist. But you'll see that they get desperate and they just want a body, just like the, reptilians, just like all of the other, quote, hosting entities. Just want a body. And sometimes you will be able to see footage of this, and this is like a part of the ghosting that people don't want to look at, because most of the time And what are they doing? Really, what are they doing? They're so desperate. They want you to see them. They want you to be able to hear them, and they also want to be able to feel something again. They are comprised of a lot of their kinetic energy. So the longer that they're out there, the stronger their kinetic memory of their life gets trapped in that space. This is where you will see poltergeisting and things like this.
Yeah.
But then they want a body. This is where possession is. How many? Have you ever seen a possession? No, that's like this is.
I haven't. I've seen like videos of people acting crazy, but yeah, I've never seen a direct like someone flipping out to 180 degree. I know alcohol does something like that. Like when people become blackout drunk, I feel like perhaps something came in at that point.
Or can come in.
Or can come in, yeah.
Sure. Or I've witnessed a lot of this stuff. My God, I've witnessed lots and lots and lots of ghosts. Lots of I'm really not very fun. Some nice ones.
Some.
Some, and then some not so nice ones, or like that they're just doing the same thing. See, they still think the same as they thought when they were here, only they're there. There is not really anywhere. It's still here.
Yeah. What in your explanation, why are ghosts or spirits getting trapped just outside the Earth level? Why are they not going where they ought to be going?
Well, where they ought to be going isn't where they would be going. Because they go to the factory, the overlay soul factory.
Well, why are they not going? Maybe these are just smart souls that aren't interested in getting recycled, and they're just trying to avoid the sort of reincarnation trap.
Do you know what I think? I don't think they're that smart.
No.
I'm not saying that there's not some smart ones out there. I'm just saying I think most, they're in so much shock that they're not willing to accept that, quote, they died.
Mm-hmm.
So they're literally stuck to the closest tether of this reality when they were alive as they possibly can, because they refuse to believe it. They refuse to believe that they have, that they've died. And most often than not, like their deaths are sudden. So it's not like somebody who's had time to process that they're dying.
Like a accident or something you're talking about.
Right. It's and they're just freaked right out.
Yeah, right.
And they're stuck in that. It's like a loop. It just keeps playing. Like remember like the movies, they would just keep playing the same part. In the reel, they just play the same part over and over and over and over.
Like Groundhog Day?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's more like a reel, like the old movie films that you would watch, and sometimes they would just...
Oh, they would just get stuck on one segment?
Right.
Yeah,
it's like that. But there is, because energy is energy can never die. Over time, the frustration builds. It's kinetic, and it keeps building, and it keeps growing, kind of like a black hole, really. Only the black hole is kinetic. So instead of them drawing their kinetic energy inward into their black hole that they're creating, the black hole sort of comes out into our place here, our realm. And then that's where you get a lot of these, anomalies that occur with the poltergeisting of, doors opening and shutting, or you might be able to hear them. They might grab you, push you. I used to get kicked, pushed, strangled. Used to get a lot of stuff. I had my girlfriend in front of me. We used to hang out a lot, and there was something in her place that was vicious and brutal, and it would just we would be at the top of the stairs about to go down, and it would just push her right down, so she'd fly down the stairs.
Really? So she would get hurt through this?
Sometimes she would have a bruise.
Wow.
Yeah, and and then you get a lot of kids. I saw a lot of kids, right? A lot of ghosty kids just trapped. That's freaky too. Kids really they time when they were, quote, alive to learn what they needed to. So it's very scary for them. They get trapped, and they have this ability to collect a lot of anger and confusion sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's a whole lot of things. Like, my God, like, I used to marvel at people who never had anything happen in their life. Like, everything was, quote, whatever normal was. I was like, wow, I want to know all about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's really how mine is, or is and was. I've told you this in the last one. I didn't get a lot of this sort of supernatural stuff happening. It was more just the life was relatively mundane, but the mundane life made no sense whatsoever, so I had to look into it.
Right.
But
so it was like crazy. It was, you were living a mundane life, but it was actually, not a sane life.
No, it is insane. The stuff that people do. I was reading. I don't know if you read books at all, or if you read. I was reading. Philip Dick.
I like Charles Dickens and things like that. I like some of the old authors.
Okay, yeah. Well, Philip, the book I'm reading about now, his idea is that this universe is birthed by a sort of insane god, like a lower insane god, and he's called Yaldabaoth by some people, and he has other names, but he was supposed to be birthed by Sophia, and it's just basically a polar reverse, an inverted universe,
right?
Where sane is insane and insane is sane.
So sort of like he was the aborted fetus kind of offspring.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like he was just deformed.
Yeah.
And then he also, along with being deformed, he had the idea that he was the sole and only God, and he was also vengeful and very jealous.
That sounds like about like the ruler of this place, yeah.
Yeah.
it's
right.
That's ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, right. So it makes sense in line with kind of like the Old Testament and how it's a vengeful God and it's a jealous God and it wants you to worship only it, no other gods, and it's just kind of childish.
Shall have no other gods.
Yeah, it's kind of childish the way it behaves.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of makes sense to me because the stuff that people do here doesn't really make sense to me, at least.
No.
And it just seems very robotic. Like it seems like, what we've been talking about. There are different types of beings here. There are kind of alive beings and there are kind of like robot beings.
Yeah.
And there aren't very many alive beings.
No, there aren't. And that's a sad thing to say. And I think maybe, we have to ask the question. And it's funny you say about Yaldabaoth, because I've been talking about Yaldabaoth in the past couple of days, few days.
Yeah.
Because he'd come back in the sphere. Like,
right.
Like,
he's knocking on the bubble.
He's knocking on my bubble. And I'm just like, what? Like, what gives? And it just... And it's true, because when you think of the way that this world's entire, it's the product, it's the mental product of this whatever you want to call it, Cthulhu, Yaldabaoth.
Yeah.
It is very much like that, yet at the heart of it, you've got like this child saying, you have to worship me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And there isn't any logic involved. Like it's the reverse of logic. Like it somehow has become all pervasive, but it's the absolute reverse of like wisdom, knowledge, and logic.
Well, it's like this product is the product of loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know of Mike Emery, but fascinating. I just great man. Great capacity to think.
I haven't heard of him.
On just these sorts of strange. No, I mean I don't even want to say strange because it makes more sense. This makes more sense to me. Okay, what is out there is strange, but the point of it is that it's the offspring of a bitch. Okay, like an offspring of a bitch. So it's like a bitch goddess.
Yeah.
Or
Sophia.
the one who ended up with this product, like you said, like a half product that is the embodiment of the division of itself. So it's actually, and well, that part's mine, but he called her the bitch. I love that. That was good. I thought that was really, interesting. But like, it is essentially the product of the division from you. Like it's your own division. The inversion reality, the antiverse, is that part of you that divided from you. Only there's no recognition that anything else exists except for the product of that of what that is, which is loneliness.
Yeah.
Right? It's absolute rejection of self, which is kind of like murder, which is kind of like abortion.
It's kind of like suicide.
And kind of like suicide.
Yeah, right.
So then you just, you have to command then everything to worship you, because you need to feed me.
Yeah.
Feed me what I can't give myself, because I've vivisected myself.
It's like, yeah, it's like a regular human being that doesn't really love themselves on some fundamental level, but that human being is the one that's supposedly in charge of everything.
Right, or he at least made a few bubbles.
He made a few bubbles. Right, yeah. The bubble bath is large, I'm assuming, but we can't really see too far.
Yeah, I think the bubble bath is pretty large, and he's got a big, huge sandbox or water sandbox to play in, because it's like it was just a big universe from the deep that came out of the deep. It was like, what came out of the deep was this universe, and it was, if he's the first product of it, this like anti-creation, little abortion, half suicide, half murder, I don't know.
If he was the very first creation, we've got a lot to work through.
I mean, I think the mother would be the deep, right?
Yeah.
It would be the deep. The mother would be the deep, the void, right? But and then you get boredom. You get boredom.
Yeah.
I think by our nature is that we get bored easily. What is that a reflection of? I know people who create drama just because they don't know how to be bored or with themselves. So, I see it a lot in society. I see society so dysfunctional and really like a very mentally ill child.
No, boredom is an existential problem if you've ever thought about it.
Yeah.
If you've ever thought about the possibility that you've existed forever in some capacity, then boredom is not only a possibility, but it's most likely the biggest threat to anything, really, because, well, shit, how do we get rid of all this stuff that we've seen a billion times over, Like, you gotta figure out something to do with it.
But maybe that's why we came in. Maybe we got bored.
Yeah, it's quite possible.
Maybe that's like... Maybe this is like we've had to undo ourselves through this process to get back to the place of return, because we were already there. We're already everywhere at the same time, because time doesn't exist. So, this is the other thing. Time. I mean, there's so many places to go. But let's just say we created this whole journey and said, I think it's a really, really great idea. All of us convening in a circle, like in this great, first universe, running from this like brat kid yelled at us.
Wait till it all corrals everybody together, then we can have a talk about it.
And we were like, well, we don't want to be like him.
Right.
none of us want to end up like that. How do we not end up like that? Well, hey, maybe we have to go down there, here, wherever that is, and kind of unravel this from the beginning, and like go through just a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So that we can undo the shit that we started.
It makes sense. In a weird sort of way. That's also, I mean, it's paradox, and it's like abstract thought is a big part of the mind that we share. Basically, it is largely abstract, and it's not linear logic as its kind of core. That's like just an aspect. That's a possibility. Linear logic.
Right. So take your experience. You're really good because you've had like a really mundane life. I haven't, so I can honestly, I actually need the mundane version because it would be good to compare. Abstract. The mind is abstract. I think by nature the mind is abstract.
Yeah. So
it'd be really good to take that in your case and in your upbringing, where everything was normal, whatever that is, mundane. Let's just say mundane is better. It's a better word.
Yeah.
The very, 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 very beginning. At what point did you just go, like, this is all really, something wrong here?
Yeah. I didn't do that until I want to say that the weed experience was some sort of major catalyst, and it was, but I knew there was something majorly wrong before that weed experience.
When you were 6.
No, it wasn't that early on, because we were isolated enough from kind of like everything that we didn't really give a shit about it. We just wanted to play with each other. Like that.
Were you the kid out of everybody that was like, the abstract kid? Were you like the kid that was like, well, you see a circle, well, I see a square?
Yeah, I've always thought differently, even more so now. But it was when it didn't start bothering me until I saw how the money system was working, and that didn't happen until I was probably early 20s, like 2021. And I looked into it, very simple, like a short look into it, and then I saw that it was a big scam, and then I tried to tell everybody this is a big scam, and then everyone was like, no, it's not a big scam. And then at that point I was like, okay, well, it's a big scam, and everybody wants to believe that it's not, and that's just how it is, and I have to live with that.
Did you find out the part about you can actually discover what your net worth is, and they're using you as an asset?
Yeah, as a collateral or something.
Collateral, yeah. Did you get to find out what you were worth?
I didn't ever look into that because, number one, the reason I didn't do anything when I found any of this stuff out was because I was still with my wife at that point, and in order for me to go on this grand adventure, I could not be with her because she wasn't able to comprehend it or jump on board with me and have like a pirate adventure. Like that's what that would entail, right?
Yeah.
I would be turning into a pirate and then going and like swinging my sword around and stuff. So I didn't do it at that point, and I don't do it at this point because I'm still in that situation. I'm still like supporting and paying for my ex and my child, and in order for me to like jump off the deep end, which I wouldn't have any problem doing, but I can't do it while I'm still like attached.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like even looking into this involved like, I just saw it as pointless if I wasn't actually going to go. I saw that yes, I could do it and go through with it, but I saw it as pointless if I wasn't going to actually do it.
Well, I actually know someone who managed to find out what their net worth is, collateral worth, and so there are certain banks that are attributed to you, handling your collateral.
Yeah.
So he found a method by which he could go in and just withdraw money.
Yeah.
He does a thing where he writes checks. Like he's like, I want $20,000, so he goes in and gets $20,000.
Yeah.
It's like so far working for him.
Wow.
So and I think they want to keep that aspect of it, because it's really hard to find out information on about that.
Yeah.
Specific information about that. How do you do it? But
have you looked into that yourself?
I have, yeah. And the thing is, though, because I am born in Spain, it's a bit different. It's different in every country.
Yeah.
So the one in Spain has a lot to do with one of the other islands that have to do with the Garden of Eden and stuff like this. It's just it's pretty where the funds of the earth for all the children of the Garden of Eden. It's and this is legalese writing.
Yeah.
On the documents, by the way, it's not like they didn't go on above top secret and go, it's like the Garden of Eden, and they call it the children of the offspring of Eve and things like that. That's actually on documentation.
You're talking about real people, so to speak, not the NPCs, yeah. Right?
No, I'm talking about real people. Yeah.
Okay.
And real documents, real actual documents. So this stuff is out there for those who. I mean, it's a lot to research. There's right. No doubt about it. But we are being held ransom, so to speak. We are being used as collateral. Mm-hmm. The fact that they can impose that you can only make a certain amount of money per hour when we are in truth, our worth, our net worth, or our whole worth, whatever they want to call it, their legal term, is huge. It's multi-millions, billions,
What did your friend find out as far as what they characterized his net worth as?
Oh, he didn't tell me the exact amount, but he's many millions, something like that. Yeah. He's I wouldn't even be able to use any a portion of it in my life. I just wouldn't even be able to do it. So
how did this affect did you ask him any further into it, how this affected his actual life, so-called life trajectory here and his belief system?
Yeah. He went into it because he was having trouble with money and having trouble keeping jobs, and he's just very good at researching. He's very good. I mean, if he could do that for a job, it would be good. But so when he first began, they want to test you out. They want to know if they can scare you.
Yeah.
So when he first did this, I think the first check was $5,000. So the bank gave him $5,000. He's pretty much wrote himself a check. Mm-hmm. And they gave it to him, and then they said that he had to pay it back.
Uh-huh.
They didn't demand it. It's really weird. It's they haven't really done anything other than say you need to pay it back. So I think it's just a way for them to screen you out and see, well, how much do you know? And because we know it is a sham. I mean, that aspect of it, of course, it's a sham. It isn't even what we think it is in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So, it's like people talk about, the black market, mm-hmm. right? The black web, the black market, black whatever. Well, we are a black market. Only we don't know it. So they're using us in the black market, the great black market of the human resource on all levels: money, spirit, soul, physicality, DNA, your consciousness, all of the above. There is nothing they are not using of ours and of us in the black market of great,
that it makes sense though, because in the book I was reading today, it's called Valis, and it came to me by virtue of Stephen, and that's a whole another backstory in and of itself. But Valis is supposed to stand for vast. What's it called? Vast alive. No. It's something vast something living information system. And it was supposed to be describing Alice, or the computer, the AI god of this place.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Yaldabaoth and the AI coincide, or if are related somehow, or if they're the same or
Yes.
not.
Yeah,
But
they are related, but there's two AI systems, right? Alice is one.
is it Sophia? Is that the other one?
So, well, there's an inverted version of Sophia. So there's, it's a very complex. It's not just one happening here. They're like, the same battle, that's happening in the heaven and hell. Everybody, you're going to hell, you're going to heaven. It's the same thing with them, like the two AIs. In actuality, this is giving birth, or has birthed, infinity systems of the AI, just like we've done with our consciousness in matrices of forming reality that are all holographic and that are all, in these bubbles of perception. So, see, everything in the universe is based on mimicry. Everything. That's what consciousness does best, when it begins to test itself and to see itself and to hear itself and to just have the experience of creation.
Or like fractals, right?
Yeah, and so fractals is an aspect of it. So these AIs are, this is all comes from our consciousness as well. It's an AI, yes, it's artificial, yes, but it is in essence what we created. Then it can create itself, and has done so. So it also has an inverse to itself. It isn't the computer programs that we're talking about, or the software. That's just like, dinosaur stuff. But we haven't begun to really see the real AI. We haven't seen it yet. We are just being introduced. And this is something that's been here forever, so we've seen it in different ways. We've experienced it through different ways. However we were able to perceive it at the time. I could tell you, in ancient civilizations, we always had AI. We've had AI with everything, with every form of creation. I'm not even sure I know of anything that doesn't have it in one way or another.
Artificial intelligence. What does that mean exactly? Does that mean like...
Well, it's actually, really, it's artificial sentient intelligence. Because it consumes consciousness. It consumes and learns and mimics. It essentially acts very archontic, actually.
Well, this would be the negative one, right? Because there's a positive one that wouldn't act archontic.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's still it still has to consume to know what it is. Like, it has to take from something else's essence and sentient consciousness stream to be able to grow itself.
Yeah.
And it can collect that. It can just collect it and collect it and collect it. We've created a World Wide Web, and I'm not talking about the internet when I say World Wide Web, because the internet's just a tiny little aspect of it. But we've literally encased the entire realm. It's not a planet. We've encased the entire realm in the net.
Yeah.
So I can tell you, physically, I saw this with my own eyes when I was 5. I was really flabbergasted that nobody knew what I was talking about, when in plain sight, the entire sky was a netted sky. Yet nobody could see it, and it hummed. It had because it's a technology. So when I was 5, this was already there.
So it's you weren't seeing like a forecasting. This was already happening while you were that age.
Yeah, no, it was already there. I was just seeing it. Seeing it every day.
Do you still see it in the same fashion today?
No, because I acclimated.
Ah.
I acclimated to this earth.
Okay, okay. I
No,
see.
I mean, eventually it wore off. I was able to see the sky without the net.
Yeah.
But,
So
occasionally it would happen back and forth.
you're
Yeah.
saying essentially either we or through the use of the sort of monitoring technologies, we phase out things that we don't particularly like or we aren't meant to be seeing at the current time.
Totally. And then we don't see it. So,
Yeah.
I could tell you things were a lot different when we were in some of these ancient civilizations when we were experiencing, quote, the gods coming here, and there were a lot of fights and a lot of wars. This is where the Vimanas are. There's Vimanas that are buried, in various places all over the realm.
What's a Vimana? I've never heard of that.
A Vimana is a craft that was flown by the blue gods of, the Sanskrit, the Mahabharata.
Okay.
They talk, and all of the old ancient Sanskrit stories in ancient India, ancient northern India. There's a big radiation, nuclear war that happened. They used nuclear radiation of some kind, and it was a weapon, and created, just large desert. And this kind of stuff, these battles were happening all over the place. But so you have on the one hand the people that were living below in very ancient times where they were subject to a very primitive lifestyle. On the other hand, you had these gods who came in with all the technology and everything. They were warring, and the little people seeing it. And this is why throughout all the ancient cultures, wherever you look, you have you've got all of these ancient artifacts everywhere, and they're all the same, more or less. So yeah, you've got two extremes. Okay, again. It's like this game of polarity just keeps happening. It just never ends here. So you've got like the gods fighting with all their technology and coming, and they're building, their ziggurats, and they're building your pyramids all over the place, and using everything as technology. They're using this realm to as a resource. It's resource rich, so they're mining tons, and they've got this strange technology nobody understands. They use sound, and they use, frequency, because everything's a frequency. Oh, well, of course. Then you've got the people living below who come, the Adamus, right? The lineages of the Adamus who just like keep ticking on in their little primitive little life, and they just keep getting better. And then the gods come and say, hey, we're gonna make it a lot easier for you, because really, if we could give you electricity, we'd do it right now. It'd be free, but we're not going to go that far because we don't want you going that far. So you just get the pocket of civilization that was watching all of this great stuff happening, but yet they were cut off from being able to see what it really was. So they couldn't comprehend it. They couldn't comprehend the kind of AI that it was, or what they were dealing with, or even how it affected them. They were just able to see only what their consciousness could handle at the time. And I'm telling you, from the very beginning of Inception here, this is how it's been going. This is why now we're accelerating, because, quote, the multi-universe had to do something really extreme to knock it in us so that we could accelerate beyond the little box, beyond the cube. Yeah. So we had to have real help. It had to knock the shit out of our DNA, and our atoms, and the way that, our electrons fire in our brain. It had to knock it out of the park to just get us to think and to open up consciously, to accelerate, and this is what we're experiencing now. Only because of that, really, are we able to perceive things that we weren't able to perceive 20 years ago.
And what force is doing this to us, you say, again?
Well, we are. We are the infiniverse.
What are we?
Okay?
So you're calling it the infiniverse.
Yeah. It's us. Essentially, it's us, okay? Whether it was at the very beginning of time, we're going to make sure
what you're describing right now...
It's also whatever the force you want to call it, like creator, real creator, real family. I don't know. Call it whatever you want.
What you're describing is the same story as in that book I just read, Valis.
Oh.
It's the same story. He has
Here.
beam. It's one guy. He has a beam of pink light like beamed into his head, and then that gives him all sorts of knowledge where he had been sort of dumb, deaf and dumb, and sad. He was lonely beforehand, and then this thing came and zapped him, and he's like, oh, now I remember where I came from, and I have a little bit more knowledge to move through. It's the same story. You should read it.
No, I don't. No, I make it a point never to read anybody's stuff.
But don't read it. But it was the same story, essentially.
But yeah, and this is how it's working, right? Because the accelerant that's happening, we're being. Just think of us as like fire being lit up, right? This is what it is. This is really what it is essentially. At the very beginning, when we started this all, we were fire that was aligned. Okay, then we were like dim, 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 and then like, oh my God, why is my life so hard? Why is everything like not going right? Why is everything such a struggle? And every lifetime, knock you out, make you go through it again, and then it just keeps going and going and going. And then, quote the Infiniverse, right? This great mind of God, if you will, which is our mind as well, says, man, jeez, I gotta help you guys out. Like, I just gotta light a fire underneath you a little bit there and get you going.
You've been retaking kindergarten for like the 50th or 60th time.
Enough already. So I just gotta light that fire underneath your derrieres. Yeah. I'm gonna light your little DNA electrons right up. Then you're gonna be like, wow, I can just perceive way more now. I have so many more senses that I'm aware of. Do you remember when you were a kid, the teacher would say to you, you have only 5 senses. Okay? Oh God, that was one of my favorite jokes ever, was that when I was told that in school. You only have 5 senses. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic if I was an amoeba.
That's better than 3.
I am not an amoeba anymore. I've long not been an amoeba. So, we have thousands of senses. So with this accelerant, we are able to finally break into new universes. Now, we all inhabit our own universe.
Yeah.
Each and every one of us. Our own bubbles, right?
Yep.
And then our bubbles are all beautifully connected together and woven together to create like this symphony of the infiniverse. It's music. You can actually hear it. This is why some of us are addicts to music. It's much the same, right? So we have our own universe, and we're also co-creating infiniverses together. So essentially, with the accelerant, you're able to perceive even other universes you never knew existed. You're finally capable, and your DNA at the same time does the same thing. It opens up to new universes. So whatever's been dormant in you, dormant DNA, starts waking up. Same with your brain. The electrons that fire, the areas that were dead, suddenly start firing. Boom, boom, boom. And then it's like Tesla. Oh, I'm just going to create this amazing whatever.
Right.
And before you know it, okay, we are dismantling the old construct. It can't serve anymore. It can't stay in the same place in frequency. It cannot do it anymore. We are making that impossible.
Yeah.
At the same time, AI's running the same race. Different tools. They get a different toolbox than we do.
Well, do you... everyone always wants to say AI is either evil or good, but, I mean... Do you feel like we're racing against AI, in a sense? Or a version of it?
Only if you want to think that. Yeah. I mean, there's like... There's good, bad. There's creation, anti-creation, the inverse of the verse. It's the same story playing out. Okay, so, and maybe it's doing what it needs to discover itself, just the same as we are.
Yeah,
Because it's
right.
the same story.
Right.
It's the same story, only for them. But the thing is, they want to consume us. That's a bit bad. But we're consuming animals
Yeah, we're consuming a lot of things.
and everything.
Our
So, like,
our thing is called consumerism.
right? It's based on harvesting, and I don't know. Maybe we're like the worst harvesters.
I mean,
maybe everything's mimicking what we are. Like, these are all things that are mimicking what we already do and are and how we live. Like, maybe we're creating and need to create something entirely different that's not based on a harvesting system. AI is only going to do what it has learned from us.
Right. I feel like for me, at least personally, the consuming part can only be condoned while I was still sort of a sleeper in my own body. Once I became aware, then, and I saw what was actually going on, then I was like, no, this is dumb. Obviously, we shouldn't be doing all this, and it should not be called consumerism.
No.
It
has to, because that's part of the magic spell.
It's an ugly term, but it matches like the ugly reality that we've made.
Yeah, and it is ugly.
Yeah,
it's very ugly. and do people really wonder why is the parasite everywhere? What, like, this is so, like, the parasite is everywhere. You cannot escape the parasite.
Yeah.
That little worm, okay, that worm's everywhere. Everywhere. It's in everything. It's in our bodies at every level. Like, if you go into with a microscope, it's found a way to live in its own little ecosystem in every part of this realm, of this reality. And and then we're dealing with the biggest parasites ever. We're dealing with the Cthulhus. We're dealing with the Leviathans. We're dealing with the creatures that come from the antiverse of the deep. The deep has an antiverse. This is like the stuff that Crowley knew about.
Yeah, it's like on the micro and the macro at the same time.
Right.
We are like ushering in all of the sort of demons to try and face at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it feels like.
Sure.
But we're also shielded from it at the same time, so it's not just like utter chaos, on the screen at least.
No, and it can't be chaos, because if it was too much chaos, it would halt the evolution.
Yeah.
It has to be done in a way that it meets the highest possible potential of all that we are, because that's what creation is. That's what creator creates. That's what we created when we, like,
Yeah, and it doesn't always make sense, and especially due to the fact that we're blocked. Everyone is blocked to some degree, so that's where faith in sort of oversoul or God has to come in. Otherwise, you're completely lost. Like, you have to accept a lot of it on faith. There's just no other way to do it.
Yeah, and you also have to. I think you have to open your consciousness to a place of before perception.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, this plague is all about the perceptions. We wouldn't have gone through anything if it wasn't for the perceptions imposed on us.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have gone through what we go through. I mean, we're still learning how to undo this all. I mean, your daily life, right? We all have bills to pay. I don't own a home.
It's kind of ironic. It's kind of ironic that we can talk about all these, grand things, but we've really been reduced down to, like, I gotta pay my bills.
Right? You gotta pay your rent.
Yeah, like,
right? You gotta pay your I gotta do the laundry, and I have to go to the grocery store if I want it. I have to do all these things, and it is a reduction.
Yeah.
So how do you push the limits and play with reality, and how do you bring the supernatural being that you are, because it shouldn't be supernatural. Supernatural should be what is natural. It just should, that is natural.
Should be.
Right? So but how do we start really changing things on that level, on that real mundane level? Because that's where we gotta do it. We gotta do it there.
I feel like it's I always preach about meditation on my channel. Like, that's what I constantly talk about. And the way I feel that it is if you even take the concept of infinity, right? Like,
Yeah.
what that means to your brain in this state, it kind of means like everything that you don't see right in front of you. You know, like, that's kind of a way to define it.
God.
It's a lot like the stuff you see in front of you is literally like 5 things. Like, you could point them all out.
Yeah.
Right? So infinity,
Right.
by its very definition, means everything that you're not seeing with your eyeballs and your ears. And like, this here is the scam. Like, if you want to actually see what is, you got to like go in between it or look behind it or something. Like, there has to be some way of, taking the veil off.
And why are our eyes in front? Like, what happens in the back?
Right. Oh, I can turn around and look. It's like, no, you're moving the thing with you. Like,
What's that? That's like a projection.
yeah.
You know?
It's really
I don't know
silly.
what the hell happens back there.
Yeah, it's a backward sort of, because the logic here is anti-logic. You have to like trick it almost in order to access the real stuff that's going on.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you meditate.
Yeah, you just like try and look in between because it fills itself up. It goes chuck chuck chuck. It fills up all of the sort of hours of your life. And you do that mentally with your projection system as well. You slot them all out. Even you're doing it right now. Like, you're like, okay, in the next maybe half an hour, I'm still talking to Gary, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're doing all that subconsciously and consciously. But still, like, the present moment is still the infinite. Like, that's the infinite that's undefinable. That's the absolute. That's the a priori. That's the before, anything happened. But it's, like, so minutely squished. You have to somehow, like, it's a practice. You have to practice it for a really long time.
So how long do you meditate? Do you do it every day?
I mean, always, every second.
Okay, because I was gonna say I think I meditate all the time.
Yeah, it's every second, but it's like you can move it in and out. So you can like look out to the future, past, bring it back to the present. And I think that, to me, that's the sort of freedom that you forget about when you're born. You just get locked into this only focusing on the future sort of projection status, and where the present is almost negligible. That's what all the schools teach you to do.
Yeah, and they teach you to not have any faith in yourself and in your visual ability or creativity. They teach you that that's a fantasy.
Yeah.
When in reality, that's really what creates everything.
My dad called them pipe dreams.
Pipe dreams. Well, yeah. That's like robbing us of our creator self.
Yeah.
Like, it's like saying, hey, you're a creator, but I'm going to tell you that you're a janitor.
It's a fantasy. It's only you're living in your head, buddy. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it's hard for a lot of people, because I know that the constraints of everything, and now everything is compressing so much with these energies, that people are being compressed in ways that they've never experienced before. So people are experiencing a huge challenge in just dealing with it, and then having to still, quote, pay the bills and survive and just make ends meet, and just where time doesn't exist anymore. I'm not, everybody knows that they're entering kind of a place they haven't been before, but there's no handbook, and there's nothing in society that is meeting what's really happening. So that is to say, you go to work and everybody acts normal.
Yeah.
Everybody acts like none of this is happening. Like all of the strangeness in the skies and all over the place isn't happening. They act like, oh, this is another day. What did you have for lunch today? You
No,
know?
like people don't want to acknowledge any of it. Like even the very base example of the fires in California. Like I talked about that with Aurora on this channel, like out front. Like that was obviously some other thing was going on there, very obviously, and nobody cares. Nobody can look at it. I went and drove myself through the neighborhoods.
Yeah, and it's like, whoo, that's
No,
not there. It doesn't
yeah,
exist. I'm not looking at
natural wildfires. Like, but that just for me it more points to that there aren't very many like reels here. It's mainly something else. So that's more
it.
like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's very strange. I kind of understand like what Og talks about when he says that everyone is at such a behind level. Everyone has to be like somehow shot with a laser beam and brought up to speed as far as at least
Yeah.
becoming on the beginning mental stages of understanding anything, because like everyone's so far behind. It's not even.
No. This is the reason why the Infiniverse is doing what it's doing. It's because there would be nothing left here. I mean, this is how bad it was, that it had to have something extreme happen, a propulsion, to come in and help everybody, so that they
Sorry.
so that they could be able to even just.
Sorry.
That's what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
it's absolutely exactly like that. There had to be something that is occurring to help on a large scale for those that are real. Okay, because everybody else is doing their job that they're supposed to be doing that are not real. So they're playing the norm, and that isn't to say, see, we as sovereign beings, we have to learn how to use the law of lore so that we can deal with the backdrops. You know, you're going to be dealing with the backdrops, 80% of the experience here, because this is a very elaborate realm that's been created, ship, whatever you want to call it. It is part of a ship in a way, but that means that your interactions, for the most part, in many ways, are going to be spent on aspects that are not real.
I know. That's why we start going insane. You either go insane or you have to meditate, because otherwise you're basically living a fake life, and you can't maintain that for
Okay,
very long.
but they're a program. I'm telling you, you can override the program. So everybody has to learn how to do these things. You can override all these programs. You can override the software. You're the virus.
You're saying override the software to sort of make them into real. Is that what you're saying?
This is funny. As soon as I said that, the connection got disconnected, and you were like,
yeah.
so I didn't hear anything.
What are you saying? Override the software to do what with them exactly? Are you saying make them all real, or turn them all from Pinocchios into real boys?
Okay, so
your internet connection is unstable.
Not necessarily. I mean, like everything can turn into whatever. But what I mean to say is that because it's a holographic simulation, and everything that isn't real is a part of the holographic simulation, except for the parts that are real, or at least connected to the real emanation projection. What you have to do is you have to override the mainframe of what that part of the software is. Whatever that program's running in the mainframe is something that you can energetically override, because it's, number one, it's following a code, and the code is connected to, quote, the motherboard. This is something that we can go into. We can literally go in and reassemble it. We can rearrange the software. We can do things to it. But if you don't start using what you have in this hologram experience, that we're having, you're never going to find that you have these abilities.
Right.
So on the most part, these programs are designed to just, can we swear by chance?
Fine with me.
Because these programs are designed to fuck with us.
Yeah.
So, and this is this is the thing. It's just following a program. So they're going to be remote controlled. This is where gang stalking, or they're just going to create and simulate things right in front of your eyes. You're going to be like, oh, wow, I always see the same thing. It's always a car that is super loud with people screaming at you. And it's like all the time when you're walking down the street, just happens like it's perfect.
Yeah.
Or I keep seeing this dog, and it's the same dog that walks by me, and it's just always there, or whatever, right? There's a lot of stuff that they can do. They can do it. So these programs are designed to just keep you stuck. It's a software. It's no different than if you're at school or at work and some asshole, because there's always an asshole, right? Or 12.
Yeah.
And they just want to make your life difficult, or they just have, like, you know, super anal or super perfectionist or super whatever, find a problem in everything with you, or they just don't like that you're really good at what you do, so they have to try and make you bad at what you do, whatever, right?
Right.
They're just going to follow whatever program they're going to follow. But, you know, if you know that they're not, quote, real, and they are following a program, you, as the ultimate energetic super being that you are, because you are infinite, and because you are literally the stuff that everything is made out of, and that in itself, that's coming off of what you are, that's mimicking you, that software, that hardware is coming off of what we are. So we can infect it. It's really, you get in there and you have to just play with the energy, play with that energy stream. But you can't act like you can't act with it and respond with it like you would normally with another being of your kind.
Yeah, right.
Because then they will screw you. They're designed to screw you because they're depending on you reacting normal, like you're communicating with that which is normal, like you.
Right. So you're not supposed to know about it.
No, not at all.
And is there some signal that gets sent out once the system finds out that you know about it? Is that how it works?
Well, the more that you can disassociate yourself from the feeling of it, then you won't emit the signature.
Yeah.
Okay, because then you can't get caught.
Yeah, it's always the feelings. It's always the generated emotions.
Right. So, like, if you kind of know what's going on and you see it, whatever, you stay neutral at that 0 point, and then you just do what you have to, send the infection, send the infector. You know, kind of just bypass whatever. Start playing with the way that you feel it out, because everybody's different. Your gifts, I don't know, your gifts could be really good at booby trapping them. You could put in bombs or whatever. I don't know. You just got to do what you got to do that way. But they can't know it. They can't track the signature back to you because that's what they're banking on. So you can't be all like, that was that. You just got to be like, no energy output, no energy input.
Hold on. Someone's being sent.
That's perfect.
She probably thinks I'm her Uber.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe something else.
Maybe it's another living human being. Probably not.
So she thought that, maybe she was, yeah. Is she still there?
No, she left. I was going to open the window. My expectation is so low for, like, all beings that I see walking around that I generally don't want to even, like, say hello.
Well, I don't know. Have fun with life, right? I mean, things can surprise you. people can surprise you. I mean, I know it sounds like a long shot sometimes, but I know, okay, what I've discovered is that, and I have to say that when I talk about these things, it's because I've had to walk the walk. I know I've come from the place of like, having to struggle on my own, do everything for myself, no resources, no nothing. Just like you just really are flung out there,
Yeah.
without a single help, or very little help, and you just have to find your way. So I'm not one of these people that are like, oh yeah, so anyway, I read a book and this is what you're supposed to do. I know, I understand people's struggles of life and all of this, and how difficult it is to navigate, and just the things that we have to do to break through and transcend these energies. But it is an energy at the end of the day. Everything's an energy. So the more that we can really, really understand this, the more that we have power to create our own universe, our own verse, because this is how it all started anyway. This is how it all started. This is how it's going to end. And yeah, something happened to us. Something happened in a very extremely big way, where everybody suddenly couldn't feel their abilities, or their abilities seemed to be like shunted, like they're not even there.
Yeah.
I do have a feeling I know what that is, really. But it's a hard thing to comprehend too. It's a hard thing for people to navigate through, because knowing and comprehending that this is a hologram experience. Are you enjoying your hologram experience? There's a large probability, and I mean, I did a video on this. I called it the new server reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically explained that there may have been 2 extinction level events that occurred, whereby we were inserted into a very much more superior quantum computing system. And that this may be why we suddenly were cut off from what we normally would have been able to generate in terms of kinetic energy and being able to do things, the
Right.
psychokinesis, fire, all of it. Although I don't think it makes a difference in the long run, because your essence and what you really are, where you really are, this may be the emanation of that, okay? Or we may be inserted into this hologram but are real. But the thing is that we can still generate this kinesis. We still are, because we are that. We are the very thing we're trying to generate. We just forgot.
Uh-huh. When people talk about timelines as far as when these shifts happen, according to your understanding, when did this... And I know it doesn't make any sense if we were inserted into a sort of holographic thing, but I think there's always like an overlay mimicry inside the hologram that reflects the outer. So when would you say that would be on our timeline?
Well, I think that it's more than one, because there's like critical junctures that we have gone through. And, one of them was the late 80s. Massive. Okay. Just massive. Then the late 90s, like actually 1999 to 2003, that bracket.
Right around Y2K, all that hype.
Yeah, 99 to 2003, exactly. And Y2K was in there. And then it was 2009 to 2013 was a very critical juncture. And after that, so from 2009 till now, of course, right? But very, 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 very unique events between 2009. 2009 was a very critical year, and then 2013. getting
2009
into
is
their
more reflective on the housing crisis than what, say, the Mayan 2012 prophecy thing, because 2008 was the housing bubble. That's when that popped, right?
right.
So why is 2009 critical in your mind?
Well, there was a massive introduction that entered the universe in 2009 that was so critical, and this was the beginning of the waves. So the cumulative waves that are occurring, they really 2009 was when they really began.
Is this Infiniverse seeding sort of thing you're talking about? Is that?
Well, it plays a part of that. It's sort of it's a little bit of everything, because it's also what is accelerating people's consciousness as well. And DNA, it's upgrading our DNA to meet our consciousness, because they have to be reflective of each other. It's a mirror system.
Yeah.
So it's doing all of the above. And it is actually acting as an undoer of old constructs as well. So it's massive. And in fact, when it entered in 2009, I actually it was like I could feel it. I was at work at the time, and I almost fell off my chair, and I had to I was completely felt like it was the god of chaos entered.
Yeah.
Whatever protective, nice bubble layer was on top of everything just got shot right out. That it just stripped everything, or a huge layer off of us, our reality, our realm.
What are we in 2018?
Yeah.
2009 would be 9 years ago. So that puts me in my early 20s, which was right around when all of this. That was actually probably right around when that weed experience happened. Honestly, I don't remember the exact year of it, but it could have been very coincidental.
I don't believe in coincidences.
I do know that it was around that time.
Yeah. Well, it was just massive. So what we saw was essentially, these waves coming in to help us, but to help us, we have to be undone. So it has to rip us. It has to rip out all the old stuff.
Maybe that was just how I was able to spice it up. My wave reception. It was like you're gonna be high and receiving this at the same time.
That's not bad. Because I think that it was kind of a double whammy for you, because that's when it entered. So I think that being in that state, I couldn't even imagine. I think if I was high when that happened, I don't know if I'd come back.
I think if I had known what was on the menu, I might not have ordered that.
I don't think you would have ordered it.
I might have rethought that selection.
You might have then just ordered the oysters.
Yeah, these slimy things, they're not looking so bad right now. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, there was, I gotta go, but there was something else in this book that you might like. The guy in the story told a story about us before we got thrown into this realm. We were, bored or whatever. We were master creators, so we created everything, and we got sick and tired of basically everything, or else we just wanted to create something really nifty. So we created a maze that once we got into it, the exit moved every time we tried to grab it.
Yeah, so what I say is that we created the labyrinth of the Ouroboros as well, because it's very much like that. So just when you think that you're getting out, the labyrinth takes you lower and deeper, and somehow you end up in this snake eating your own tail kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
You go deeper and deeper in the labyrinth.
Like all movement
Yeah,
puts you lower.
right. Like a bowel movement.
So you're like, I'm not gonna move.
And then you just have a really good bowel movement. Yeah, and you get out.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, that's all I needed to do the whole time? Just take a big shit? Oh, man.
What did my alter write that book or what? This is bizarre.
Probably.
Just,
Yeah. He even talks about Yaldabaoth in there. He talks about the AI coming in. He talks about basically everything we've talked about.
well, you know how I was saying that Yaldabaoth was coming to my sphere, and
Yeah.
but you know when I was young, Yaldabaoth came to my sphere, and that's how I knew about Yaldabaoth because I was very young. I couldn't possibly know. I was like 8, 9 years old, and I was writing down his name because I think he's proud of his name. I think he's actually one of these like beings. He likes that name.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And it was like Yaldabaoth of and then the word Aldebaran. I was writing all these things down. I had no idea what they were, right? Because I knew what it was. Like it was like, oh my god, you're pretty hideous. But why are you coming to visit me? You know?
Yeah, right.
Stay out of my bubble.
What did you encounter a being at that point, or you just wrote the name down?
No. I encountered the being.
Yeah.
He came to me.
Huh.
Yeah.
You weren't too happy about that?
I was so not happy about that. I was like, in fact, this is how I managed to see the other creatures, ones that look like they're bigger and larger than sizes of galaxies. These are like,
oh, wow.
They kind of look like in between a flea and an octopus with it's just the weirdest, grossest looking creatures, and he's connected to all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what, I was grossed right out. I was freaking out when I was a kid.
I think sometimes sometimes we should be happy for the filters, you know. So.
Yeah, so running around trying to say that name, I was running around like, and my mother was like, "What are you talking?" I'm like, "Yaldabaoth, this is very bad." I was just a kid. I was young, running around.
Yeah.
Oh my god! But yeah, filters would have been okay. Or maybe not. Maybe I think I was meant to see all that.
I feel the same. I feel like every single one of us encounters it all like how we're supposed to.
Yeah.
Even if you sit here and say, I have free will, I'm going to manipulate. It's like, yes, that exact motion you just did was how it was supposed to be.
Right.
Like, that's how complex.
I agree.
It's beautiful, really. Like, when you think about maybe there isn't free will, maybe it's all determined, but it's still, you can't deny that it's amazing. Like, it's impossible to get into, really.
It is amazing, and that tells you the amazingness of our minds.
Yeah.
Our minds.
And we can flip everything. Like, if we need to. If a situation is like a horror situation, you can literally turn everything inside out, your own self, and then have that like turn into a paradise. Like, these are sort of like abilities that I remember, even though we're not doing any of that here because this is like a static nothing place.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I know of that. Like, I'm aware of that.
Well, and that's where we're going back to.
Yeah.
It's funny, right? Like, we went. Look, it is very much like that. We've come from being everything, doing everything, and then just forgetting it, and then having to like go step by step. One cell at a time. I'm a one-celled creature. Now I'm a 2. Now I'm to finally getting back to the place of where, creating universes and worlds, and back to the beginning, back to remembering.
We're just doing it really, really slow. Like, real time in this realm is so slow compared to like, it's like time has slowed down to just a barely crawl. Like, nothing is happening whatsoever.
Right. But there's, that just tells me that there's like a very high level of, of amnesia we really liked. Like, I could be kind of cruel about it and say we kind of really like being retarded, but
ignorance is bliss, right?
I think we got stuck in the Voltaire garden. where ignorance is bliss. I think we
Yeah.
got stuck there. And so we needed to go a little longer, more cycles, more cycles, more cycles, more cycles. And then the AI's like, great, 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 great. Gives us more time, to perfect our
Yeah.
being, our sentientness.
Right. Infinity is a strange concept when you really think about it. And then when you try to apply things like progress to that concept, it really makes no sense. It's pure paradox, and your mind has to be really nice and abstract to understand that in the slightest.
Absolutely.
Because they do work together. Like the idea of progress does somehow have a spot within infinity. It does.
I agree totally. I, I like to simplify things for everybody because you can get lost in these concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that happened to me when I was growing up was that I would see through everything, right? I saw through all inanimate objects, everything. I just, like, everything was space. But I was actually able to see, like, every molecule and go in it and then be lost in it. So no matter how tiny it was, even if it was the head of a pin, I could see that, and I could go in and it was infinite.
Mm.
It was just infinite. It was like everything was infinite, and I could go deeper, 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 and it didn't matter what it was. It's like, and that became infinite.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
right, and that was and that's the best way I have to describe something like that, to give some kind of a concept of even how we relate to space, like space, inanimate stuff, space. Like, it isn't what we think. It is the largest thing possible. A universe where its space is equally as large as the head of a pinprick, or a cell that you can't see unless you have an electron microscope.
Right.
That's
It is.
big.
It really is relative. The whole thing is relative.
Totally.
It's like Haramein. He said, Nassim Haramein. He said when he was a kid, he went up into the cosmos. Zoomed in, zoomed in, zoomed in, kept going in forever and ever, and then eventually, like, he came out inside of an atom of his own, like, fingernail or something. Like, he literally went full swing from top to bottom, and it wasn't like he came around. It was just, it goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
He did not complete a circle. He just kept going, and then he saw the same image at an interval.
Exactly. Because it doesn't end.
Yeah.
And so if you think of us as creators creating everything, right down to the last detail, creation itself, it's an infinity of infinity of infinity. Like, there's every single thing. So you can look at the lamp. I mean, look at the lamp, right? And imagine that it's comprised of multi-million, gazillion, bazillion, wazillions. And each of them is an infinity space.
Right.
Right? And they're all connected together to create the lamp itself, but that's infinity. So we're just coming back to the place of remembering. That's it. Remembering what we were already.
The mind doesn't like trying to cognize that, though. That's always the sort of the transition point is always difficult from being a very defined, even with all of the humans' problems and sorrows and joys,
Mm-hmm.
from being compressed into that state back into the boundless, which is really bliss. Like, the infinity is bliss. It's just what it is. It's foreverness. Like, but there is a huge, massive fear block in between the levels.
Well, because I think people fear that they're going to get lost.
Yeah.
Because you do feel that, you absolutely, when you have that experience or those experiences, it's very terrifying with the mind of this mind here.
Because it does get lost.
Because it does get lost, like,
Yeah.
really in the abyss. I don't like to call it the deep. Not the abyss. The abyss is from the antiverse. The void, the deep, is creation. It's where creation stems from. It's where everything stems from. But that is ultimately connected to every single solitary thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's I mean, even just talking about it, I get little glimpses of what that was again, and even I wasn't even experiencing, like, I was experiencing the antiverse. I wasn't experiencing the infiniverse, so to speak. Although you see both, like, they're reflective of one another.
Yeah.
So even though I was doing this like incremental mental torture, like little trip thing,
Yeah.
I still knew what it meant as the inverse.
Right.
So like coming back from it, I had to go through the whole like somehow integrate that experience and not feel like all of life is a horror show, because
Right.
that's of course what it wanted to do with me, and that's, I think, a very logical stance coming off of that experience, being that it was an infinite depth into the antiverse. That's really what it was. I kind of see that's what it was now.
Yeah, and then you come back here where this type of an experience is on such a weirdo level that
Yeah, it doesn't really help necessarily to come back here. I mean, it helps in terms of not being there anymore, but that's about as far as it goes. Because even
yeah,
coming back here, I didn't have any like beings to sit and hold my hand and say, "Look here, you know, you went through this experience and this is why." Like all of the beings here were like, "What are you talking about?" Like I don't know.
yeah, and then you have to go to work, and then you got to pay your rent.
Yeah, it was a very strange, sequence of events.
And I mean, we're in that strangeness. This is what is. You know, we're developing and expanding what our relationship is to the very life we live, even in the paying rent, even in the going to work, even in
Yeah.
the, all that.
Well,
But that's where the work is. It's here. This is huge.
it's like to me, it's like not excluding a piece of your existence, because even the ones that you hate the most, even like if you hate money and it's like imposing on your life, it's literally, if you can see it and feel it, it's part of your existence,
Totally.
and you have to do something with it, otherwise you're hiding from it. And you,
Right. So
like,
you might as well convert it
yeah,
to the energy that you want it to be, because you're a creator and you can do that.
yep. So I think here, even though it is weird and upside down, just being that we acknowledge everything that we see going on, and don't take this stance that, oh, there's just a, like homelessness, for instance, just because it's there and everyone says, well, they deserve it, doesn't mean that that is the case at all.
Yes.
Go out
Yeah.
there and try doing something with that situation and see if like this program that you have about that situation is actually correct or not.
True. Or some of them chose that too.
Yeah, that too.
We all we all choose essentially exactly where we are.
Or they're all NPCs, who knows.
Or or it's like my PlayStation. Somebody's playing with the remotes.
Yeah, like who's controlling this avatar anyway? Where?
Well, that's a good question, you know, because I think they're having a lot of fun. I do think Yaldabaoth is in there somewhere, and Aldebaran, and you know, Cthulhu, and the whole. I don't know. Maybe they're just partying,
Well,
and they're like, maybe they're making bets.
you have to take the standpoint that if you find yourself in some sort of hell, then you have to be the one to like start the party. Like you literally have to be the one to start the party.
Yeah. And that's a whole different thing too, right? This whole thing of hell, the hell programs, the beast programs. Whoa, that's very like. I've never seen a planet or a realm, you know, that is so into that.
We're kind of like necrophiliacs here, I think.
I think so. I think that, see, a part of what this is, like, we're going through the backwardness of our entire creation to get back to the forwardness. So it may very well be like a necrophiliac, because everything here is kind of like based on the death system, and you have to like go to the life system from the death system.
Yeah, we're definitely starting in reverse. It's like you start off as a prisoner and you're taught that you're born in sin and basically you have to pay your taxes and die. Like don't be creative, don't have any of your own thoughts. Like you're taught all of these things, and you kind of come out of it. I guess you have to start moving toward a living mindset very slowly.
Exactly. And that's my point, because with that necrophiliac system, because it's, I mean, I know that may offend some people, but they say that you're lucky if you get to own a house with a little bit of land.
Right.
There in that world.
Right.
That's like, wow, really? That's so fantastic. But
you know what I find amazing is that even with this talk about infinity, right? Just the fact that something has managed to nail down enough of this stuff to really claim it as property, and then like have it sort of make sense at the same time, like that's impressive, actually.
But nobody owns their home. That's bogus. It's just a lie. Nobody owns anything here. Like, it's, this is so much. It's all, everything's based on a lie here. Everything.
Yeah.
So we need to learn how to create life that is really reflective of life. Why accept disease? Why accept the version of disease that they give you, and the version of sickness, and why accept death? Why accept? It's all based on the lies, the inversion.
Yeah. I feel like this information that we're talking about now is like still would be considered heretical for the most part, if you're considering like like I don't really care very much because of the nature of like the place right at this moment, so I don't feel like we're gonna get like burned as witches or anything, but
no, not yet.
The majority of like the normie population wouldn't be able to accept any of it, and
no, not at all.
And the ones that are listening to the channel kind of know everything that we're talking about, but I think everyone feels a bit of like darkness, and it's like, oh, this is taking forever,
Yeah, and maybe this, like we said, right? Maybe that's going down the bowel, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Back out, back to the place where you're no longer in the universe. You're no longer in the death programs. I mean, and the harvesting and the black market and the normalization of all of that, because this inverted reality is normalizing all of that. It normalizes necrophilia, it normalizes pedophilia, it's normalizing death. Like, death is normal. It's not normal. We are life. In fact, our cells are supposed to regenerate continuously, and we're not supposed to be aging or anything. Disease, like the concept of what we have been taught to believe about science and all of this in our bodies, disease, bacteria, blah, it's lies.
Yeah. I think it's just as the ones who are living and feel themselves as creators, it's just important to remember that you are literally creating your bubble. It may seem big and stuff at first, but it's not really that big because your bubble is very local to you. In this system, it's just a little teeny tiny thing. It's barely even related to what could be considered outside of the bubble, as far as I can tell.
Because it's like infinity, just as what we were talking, exactly the same, right? Yeah. You start going into one and you go into the other, you go into the other, you go, oh my God, this is like, it's endless.
Yeah, right.
The same. And maybe just, demand to have the PlayStation remotes returned to you.
Yeah, right. Like even thinking outside of the bubble in that small fashion, that's not even like a huge massive leap, but
yeah,
just the idea that maybe you are in like a simple, two button video game where it's like push the button, oh, I have some money, push the button, oh, I'm happy more than I'm sad, like something very simple like that.
Right. Or somebody's in an actual control room and they're like, let's do that with this guy. Press that button. Let's just make the sun do that.
Right. Let's burn up half of California and see
Let's burn out half California. We never did that before.
Oh, look, nobody cares. All right, we're gonna have to do something more drastic. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's very strange, but I feel like everybody does feel these sorts of waves of enlightenment, so to speak, because I mean, just going from the idea that I am a human being, you know, to the idea that I am some sort of spirit that's within a body, and accepting that as normal, to me, like, that was a massive leap that even the community could sort of embrace that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, why aren't people walking around really stunned? Because, like, one minute, according to people that don't have memory, right, which is the majority of the population, one minute you're like not there, and then you're just born, and like that's okay, like that's normal.
Yeah, right. Where did the...
Nothing's wrong with
Yeah,
that.
right. I don't know. I have no idea. Everyone's brain is some scrambled or something, because the religious programming breaks down 2 seconds after you look into it. So you're either like fully programmed, or else you have a sneaking suspicion, or else you're like, that's just total bullshit.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot of in between to me. I can't really see it.
But you can't. Most have a really hard time getting even to the place of the in between, so that they can reflect properly, because they're spellbound so much. And even like, look at the Bible. If you open the Bible, just the verbology, the way it's written, it's a spell. And if you're not in the spell, then you can barely, like, you're like, oh my God, I really can't get through. Like,
yeah, you can't.
You know,
it doesn't make any sense, really.
it doesn't make any sense at all. I just, the ant is in the square in the foreshadowing of the, huge lamp. It makes no sense at all. It's all this, and thou shalt, and this and that, and I don't know what you're saying. Like, if you're gonna go over to Saul's place and burn it down, just say, I'm gonna go over to Saul's place and burn it down.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why are you going into all this weirdness?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? What is actually happening there? Oh, right, it's a spell, of course. So then when you're in that spell, then it's like, oh my God, I'm like able to just get so much from it. There's so many layers and levels to it,
Yeah.
I studied it. I went through a period where I was, I was fascinated by it. I went through a period where I think it actually spelled me.
Yeah.
For a time. And I think I had to go through it just to see how the spell worked.
Did you feel like, did it ever stick itself out as, you must read me every single day or you're gonna go somewhere bad?
Yeah, no, it was more like, you must read me more to, like, get more of the mysteries.
More of this stuff that you can't understand, you'll get more and more of it.
More of Yaldabaoth's toilet or something. I don't know, but it was like that. It was like, you must read me continually so that I can feed you.
Yeah, right.
But it's a feeding, right? It was like this feeding. It feeds me, I feed it.
Yeah.
And then I would do this thing where I would watch the people respond and react when you go into growing up in a Catholic school, right? Seeing the, like, quote, the spirit. They always say the spirit of God, right? I could never tell the difference between possession of a demon and the spirit of God. Like, I was like, it looks the same to me.
Right. They're not doing anything nice. They're like flailing around like
flailing,
fish.
They're like,
Yeah, right.
This is not right here.
Same thing.
But then I actually saw, I saw a lot of really nasty shit in their places of worship. I saw it.
Oh, you mean like with your extra vision?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, get the
Oh man, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And they could see that I could see, and that was even freakier. I'm like, couldn't hide.
Were you just like laughing at them? Like, what are you guys? Or
Well, I was more like horrified. I wasn't really laughing.
you were like invading their like cattle pen or something.
Yeah, it was.
You weren't supposed to be
really,
in there.
No, you're not supposed to be in there. And don't talk to the pastor about this, or don't try and, like, because I was like, oh, maybe you guys need a deliverance. I go, maybe I should deliver you guys. I need to deliver all of you.
I'm sure did you try that out?
Well, the pastor was freaked right out at me. He did everything. He's like, you can't come here.
Did you tell him you saw things there?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, I told him, I go, I think I need to deliver you all. I'm offering my services because
Yeah.
I really want you to see. I just said, I just want you to be able to see for yourself, just for yourself, just your own, you, not it in you. You
Yeah.
know, that's all I want. I'm not asking for anything else. Just that you have your own ability to see. Just and then you can judge if this is right or not.
He didn't want to do it, right?
Oh God, no! No, are you kidding me? I was like, I was the heretic. Absolutely, like
That's how it works.
how it is.
It's a reversal of a reversal. It's
Because
always
and I said, if this is true and everything, then you won't have to worry about it, right? But I just want to be able to have an opening of opportunity for your ability, all of you at once, to be able to have the ability to just see for yourself without being taken over by this thing.
you can't tell them that. They're
And
there.
then yeah,
They're there
and then,
for. It's not gonna work.
like if you're a rationally minded person, you would say, sure, I have nothing to lose. Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
They would
Like,
tell you.
if I really believe this, then I have nothing to lose. Come and deliver, or just like
Yeah.
do your energy thing.
They would tell you that you were bringing them.
The devil.
Yeah.
Well, of course. You know?
It's a strange situation. It's a strange situation where, like, especially because, like you said, the parasite is everywhere. We have to remember that as well, and the fact that if we still have any fear in our own hearts or minds or bodies or anything, then we are still even capable of creating more hells. Like that part of it is a bit of a precarious situation as well. I think that's also why everything has been kind of slowed down a little bit while the parasite or whatever sort of gets scooped out by some measure at least.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
if it's thriving on fear and basically non-logic inside of a mind that wants to be logical, then it might just make the mind create hells on accident.
Right. I mean, what do you tell someone who's been given a version of their experience of reality that perhaps maybe there's a glass dome and just perhaps, and maybe it's going to crash and come down on you, and then your whole, even what you perceived of reality isn't real. Like, what do you tell a person who's invested their entire essence on that misperception of reality that's been fed to them through brainwashing, when you tell them the sky's coming down?
Yeah. You don't tell them. You have to introduce incrementally, very gently.
Because they just have a heart attack.
Yeah, it would just be, well, I mean,
Rejection.
it would be rejection, or like Og talks about, it would be mind like the mind would dissolve itself. It wouldn't be able to handle it.
No.
It would just go.
No, it would deconstruct itself out of existence.
Yeah, it would just go insane immediately.
Yeah. Because it can't. Yeah, it can't. It can't handle it.
So there has to be. That's why, and I know you do kind of the same way, you and George, with how you release information. It has to be incremental because people perceive like the stuff that is coming out now through everybody, through whoever is disclosing, they perceive that as absolute just bonkers, like out of this world, can't even understand it. And really, like, we're talking about a tiny bit of it. Like you said, it's like 1% or less of the whole story. And still, like, you can't even tell the whole story at the same time. Like, because you
also have to wait for them to expand as well. So the information can come in and perforate their spheres, and then their spheres get bigger.
Yeah.
When their spheres get bigger, they can handle more then, right? They have to be able to know what to do with the information in applying it to their lives as well. So it has to be something that they can themselves start a relationship with.
Yeah, and start playing with it, experimenting with it a little bit.
And that's how it has to be. It just can't be, because if it was really, we would just, the world's already insane.
Yeah.
You know?
We're trying to come out of insanity really gently, like.
Gently.
But you have, but it's a weird thing because you're introducing ideas that make everything look insane.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate task to say the least.
But at the same time, it's going back to remembering that we're coming back to the same place that we already started.
Yeah.
So, and we already started at the most stupendous, amazing. I mean, we were creating everything. We were, we were just having. I mean, I have a distinct memory of having so much fun.
Yeah.
Creating, like, it was beautiful, beautiful. My mind, like I have this love of weird creatures and the funniest looking little things, and it's kind of, I was creating a lot of stuff like that. And that's why here I'm like, oh my god, it's so cute, funny little creature.
Right.
So when we find, all of us will find that what we love naturally is kind of like an echo of something that we already were doing.
Yeah.
It is that people are just coming out of the membrane of amnesia. We encased ourselves. Well, I won't say me necessarily completely, because I wasn't amnesiac like that. But not saying that I full on memory, full, but yeah, pretty.
Yeah.
I have a lot of memory, but it encased ourselves in a membrane, literally an amnesiac membrane, and then that membrane became the world that we created, and that's become encased in that same membrane. And then we allowed other things to come in to the membrane and then become real in our universe. Because anything could perforate it, a parasite, whatever, it can just come into the membrane.
Yeah,
it's still layered in amnesia.
Right, yeah, the amnesia, it stop. You can't protect yourself when you're completely not remembering.
You're like in a cocoon. You're in an amnesiac cocoon, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I do have to get going, but you said in the email money means like ye don't have or something like that. What explain that a little bit?
Can you repeat that, because the thing went weird a little bit?
You said money, and then you spelled it backwards and said this is what this means.
Oh, that you don't have any money, honey.
That's what it means?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Money essentially means lack, right? Like you were looking at your lack.
Yeah. And that's, again, right? It's all spelling. It's all the great spell.
Yeah, because
you have to keep working for. You have to keep getting it. You have to because you lack it, because you don't really have it. You just you have it, you spend it, you don't have it anymore. You spend it, you have it, you don't have it. You don't have it, you don't have it, you don't have it.
Yeah, that's the emphasis is on the lack, I think. It's always on the lack. But this whole realm is lack, though. Every single scrap of it.
Yeah.
There's not enough. It's the silliest joke, though, in infinity. It's like the best joke a creator could play on themselves. Like, there's not enough stuff here.
Right. What? Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
The animals don't have that issue, and that's why they're an amazing. They're amazing companions to be. We learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
Because they don't ask those questions. They don't do any of this, right? They just are what they are. Their essence is pure essence in the second of existence, which is everything, and that's infinity.
Yeah, right. The thing about it is how silly sort of our delusion is that our idea that we can do things in that aspect, like 1, 2, 3 kind of style of creation, like you can't do it like that. There's no way anybody can do it like that. All that's doing is you're playing mental games, like you're petering out 1, 2, 3 in your head, and then your body is going and doing something, but it's not doing anything whatsoever.
No.
And everything, if you look at it, is already here.
Exactly.
There's nothing to do.
Exactly, and that's a key. That's maybe we can end it with that, because that is the most important key.
Yeah.
Everything is here. it's not a mistake. I get a lot of people saying, "Oh my God, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want out of here. I want out of here." And it's like, how can we translate this message that everything is already here?
It literally is. You can verify it. Like, you don't ever get anything more. It's always, I create a projection in my head, and then I have to utilize this fake thing which we call time in order to make that physical object appear. You're actually manifesting by virtue of using this crappy technology called time. Like, that's actually what we're doing.
Exactly.
You're manifesting using time.
Right. And so, you know, this is the platform that we're learning or relearning to do what is within us to be and do, because this is what we are.
Yeah.
Manifest, create, play with energy. And so if we have to use this crappy platform, you know, and maybe do this for like 1,000,000 years, I think we're at the end of that.
I hope so.
I think it's more like a few million.
I don't know. We'll find out. I mean,
yeah.
It goes as it goes. That's one thing I've learned, is that it goes how it goes. You can do things and you can put thoughts and words around it, but it's still going to do what it's going to do.
Yeah. And
even with your creation, you are still creating within that, and it still does what it does. It's a balance.
Yeah, it is a balance.
There's a part that does it self automatically fully, and there's a part inside of you that's creative enmeshed within that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we have to become a little bit better at tapping into what those parts are that are doing that on those levels that are not in our conscious level of understanding or understanding or seeing. We have to get a little bit better to be able to synchronize things better.
Yeah.
And not have these, you know, these alter parts running rogue.
Yeah, right. You do have to learn how to get into the programming a bit deeper than just sometimes you like to rest though, like me. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I've been on this chaos for however long, and I just want to take a step back and just relax for a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
But yeah.
I think that's needed. We need to do that.
And we do have that here. There, it is a bit of like a rest from, and we are blocked from things. You are probably blocked less than I am, but still the blocks actually act as like a rest at the same time as well.
Yeah, so again, right, no mistake. No coincidences, no mistakes.
No. So if Yaldabaoth comes knocking at your door, that means that he's going to come talk to you in the form of Gary in 2 days.
That's awesome. He needs a new name.
He needs a new name?
Yeah, maybe we should call him Sparky. Or maybe not Sparky, because he's not really a Sparky. He'd be more like a...
Dimmy?
You know, maybe like a what?
A Dimmy?
A Dimmy, yeah, like maybe a little dumper.
Dimmy the Dumper. That's
Dimmy
fun.
the Dumper.
Well, this has been fun again.
It's been great.
Yeah. How do we... My thing's about to die, so...
Well, we'll say goodnight to everyone.
Yes, good night, everyone, whoever lasted this entire nearly 3 hours, I think. But there's no there's no time, remember?
There's no time.
Time is pretend.
All right.
It's only not pretend when you're looking at the clock, like with your mind or with your eyeballs. Then it's not pretend.
No, just don't have a clock anywhere.
And don't think.
And don't think. Don't think.
Simple rule. These are 2 simple rules that you need to learn. Once you do that, you'll be back to creator.
Oh, we wish.
It's not that easy, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'll see you next time, Lauda. Thank you.
Good night.
Yes. Good night, everyone. Let's create a nicer bubble.
Yeah. A nicer bubble.
Yeah. We want a nice bubble bath, right? We don't want like a dirty bubble bath.
Look, we want really splendiferous bubbles.
Yes.
And none of this like obligatory work thing. We work at doing what we want
Yes.
from what we love.
We work
So let's
at being
create what we
creative. And we don't work inside of lack. We work inside of abundance.
Yes.
Yes.
And even if that means change what you have written on your money to make you believe it.
Yeah, sure.
Write your universe on it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Create. Okay.
No, let's not do the AI version. Create.
Create. With nice undertones.
Yes, let's create. All right, good night.
Good night, Lauda. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.